Athletes, let's stop being so selfish. Let's stop being saying, here's what I mean by being selfish. You're pounding the basketball. Stop pounding the basketball, because for each dribble that you take, you're getting your team tired. I'm going to say that again. For each extra dribble you take, you're getting your team tired. There's nothing more beautiful than seeing a team run a fast break without the ball ever hitting the ground. The worst thing that happened to the basketball was put air in it. Listen, the worst thing that they did to a basketball was put air in it. If you understand the history of basketball, right, with the peach basket and all that, they had to pass the ball. The worst thing they ever did to a basketball was put air in it, because now it comes right back up to you. And like you're almost hypnotizing yourself, because you just look, the worst thing they ever did to a basketball, put air in it. Athletes, move the ball, pass the ball, stop being so selfish. If you pass the ball, I assure you the ball will come back and find you.
Hey, y'all, let's get to it. All right, so this is Coach Karvell Bailey. Welcome to another episode of Lunch and Learn. Make sure you hit that share button, right? Share this with somebody that you love, somebody that you care about, as well as let me know, right? Let me know what city and state you're coming from. So I'm not on location, right? I'm actually just I'm getting my Russell Simmons on again, right? So I'm stretching. Had a good workout this morning, so do my best to get a good stretch in once I'm done, right? So that I can just it can just help everything go a little better. So while I'm out here stretching, I said, well, hey, let me get a 2-for-1, right? Almost like a basketball. Let's get a 2-for-1 and let me have this conversation with you all today, right? One of my clients just texted me, but let me have this conversation with you all today. So over the past 3 or 4 weeks, right, we've seen a resurgence in the basketball player and the athlete that we know as Chris Paul, right? And so this resurgence has been incredible, right? And a lot of people wrote Chris Paul off. A lot of people didn't think that Chris Paul had what it took to be able to put himself as well as his team in position, to be a championship contender. Now, we know when he was with New Orleans, they went to the Western Conference Finals once. I think they lost to the Spurs. When he was with the Clippers, same thing. I think they lost to the Warriors. So CP3 has been close several times on several different occasions. However, he just hasn't been able to get over that hump. And, you know, people talked about him and, you know, criticized him for not being able to get over the hump. But what I've noticed over the last 3-4 weeks is what I want you to really pay attention to today as we get to talking about your particular athlete. All right. So the first thing that we can learn from Chris Paul, as I finish my stretching, but the one thing that we can learn from Chris Paul is this. All right. Chris Paul has learned how to effectively communicate with his teammates. He's effectively learned how to communicate with his teammates. So many times, right? People have said, well, hey, Chris Paul is a bad teammate. He runs his teammates off. You know, nobody wants to play with him. Well, maybe, but maybe the way he's been communicating with his teammates, only he understands. See, because Chris Paul has the mindset of Kobe, Rajon Rondo, Michael Jordan, those people, right? They're about results. And so a lot of times Chris Paul may communicate with people and they may not understand his method of communicating because they don't think like that. But what Chris Paul has had to do, and I know this for certain because I know Chris Paul's sports psychology coach or his mental training coach, right? I know who that person is. But Chris Paul had learned how to better communicate with his team with or without the ball. And so a lot of athletes today need to learn how to communicate with their teammates if they have the ball, if they don't have the ball, because oftentimes they only know how to communicate when they're asking for the ball. But communication with teams and teammates go into a lot more than just calling for the ball. You have to be able to communicate on defense. You have to be able to communicate in transition, right? You have to be able to communicate on the free throw line, communicate in adversity, communicate when it's going right. But it's not necessarily the communication that's the issue. A lot of times the issue is the comprehension, right? See if I can take this over here. I'm going to change it up a little bit so y'all can just see. Right. So I'm watering my grass too, so you see that it's coming. But that communication then leads to comprehension because okay, all right, cool. We're gonna get through this anyway. TD, what's up, man? Always good to have you from Seaside, California. Always good to have you, Tim. But it's not always the communication, it's the comprehension. Because if we communicate with people the way that we understand, they don't comprehend us. So a lot of times your athletes are probably communicating with their teammates, but they're communicating the way in which they understand. And now the comprehension is thrown off. Because I can say, I need you to get a rebound. Or I can say, get a rebound. I can say, box out. But depending on how that person comprehends it, they can take offense to it. And that's what happened a lot of times in Chris Paul's early career. He was communicating, but the comprehension was thrown off. So to my young athletes, right, the parents of my young athletes, get them to understand, one, they need to be able to effectively communicate. But the golden nugget to that effective communication is being able to get people to comprehend what it is that you're exactly meaning, not necessarily what you're saying. Does that make sense? Right? So effective communication / comprehension is the first thing that Chris Paul has had to learn with this new resurgence, right? The second thing that Chris Paul has improved in, I don't even want to say had to learn, but the second thing that he's improved in is he's more aware of who's around him and what their strengths are. He's much more aware now, right? Yeah, you know, New Orleans back in the day, if I'm not mistaken, right? I think he and AD played for a second together. And, you know, with the Clippers in LA, right? They had a good team, right? Blake and, you know, they had a good team. But based on how they perform and how they perform in pressure situations and non-pressure situations, right? That is dependent on how you may communicate with them or how they may comprehend things. But because Chris Paul now has an awareness, right? Even regardless how good the Clippers were, arguably, Chris Paul was the best player on that Clippers team. Arguably. But, and so regardless how high Blake Griffin is jumping and dunking, how much DeAndre Jordan is dunking, right? Based on that awareness, he had to do certain things and he had to overcompensate for certain things based on his awareness or lack of awareness on what his teammates could do. So what does this have to do with your young athlete? Well, it's the same thing. Is your young athlete aware of who they're playing with? Are they aware as to how the players on their team behave in tense situations, non-tense situations? Are they aware of what makes them tick? Because now once they become more aware, now they can communicate differently so that it can be comprehended on the other end. Is all this making sense to y'all? I really want to make sure this is making sense because I don't want to go too deep, but I'm going deep. Right? So you have to become aware of who's around you and what's around you. Then that will help you then be able to communicate what's needed. And in that communication, you could communicate with your teammates. Your athlete can communicate better with their teammates because they're aware of how they tend to behave. And then that also helps them understand how they like to communicate. So because Chris Paul is aware that Devin Booker is the best person on the team, right? And they have a lot of other threats, he's more aware of what he can help them do. And now he's verbally communicating it in a manner in which they can comprehend. It's really not rocket science. You just have to understand the concept. But then the third and final thing so you got that weather coming through. Yeah, actually I'm watering my grass, TD, and the wind is blowing a little bit. And so yeah, I'm getting some, water splash, but you see this all sweat. So yeah, we finally hit like 90 here in Chicago. I got out earlier and worked out, and so now I'm actually stretching. And so I cut my water on to water my grass. So yeah, that's water. That's not rain. That's water, right? Coming down. Paul was the best player on the team. Yep. Blake was all hops. Yep. No brain. Now Blake is showing something different now. But to my point, CP3 had to do some things much differently, right? I don't know why I'm big here, right? CP3 had to do some things much differently than he's doing now, right? He doesn't necessarily have to overcompensate to be able to help what they don't have or what they might not have. But here's the third and final thing, right? Here's the third and final thing that can be helpful for you as well as your athlete. All right, I ain't gonna mess with it because I don't want it to mess up. We're gonna just go right here. All right, this is the third and final thing. Chris Paul is controlling the flow of the game. Chris Paul is controlling the flow of the game. And I get my clients to understand this, like within the first 3 to 4 weeks, right? I get them to speak to really understand this within the first 3 to 4 weeks. Yep, Blake is an older player. He had to learn. Yep. And guess what? That awareness, TD, comes from experience, right? So if athletes don't have the awareness that they need, then guess what those athletes need to do, or those parents need to do for their athlete? They need to help their athlete get with somebody that has that experience, right? See, all of my clients in the door are like grandfathered into 28 years of experience. I got 28 years of experience. So the people that work with me automatically, like a coattail blessing, they say in the church sector, they automatically is getting 28 years worth of experience from their coach so that they can learn what not to do, right? So you get that experience the older you get, or the more that you go through. Let me say that, right? So Chris Paul's third thing, right? You're speaking a universal language, Coach. This definitely extends to every area, sis. Every area in life. Every area in life. Again, you know me. Y'all know me. Understanding life through the game of basketball. That's how I teach it. That's what I know. Understanding life through the game of basketball. We can better. So I'll go back to the people that just came in, right? And share this with somebody that you love. The first two things that Chris Paul has had to do: one, he's had to be able to communicate better with his players. And it's not always the communication, because we communicate with people based on how we understand, right? But so it's not always the communication. You're saying something, they receive it differently, is what they comprehend, right? So he's improved his communication and comprehension, one, but he's been able to do that because he's more aware of who's around him. And because he's more aware of who's around them, in basketball, we call it know your personnel. You know who to get the ball to, where to get them the ball, and when to get them the ball. Does that make sense? So because he understands his personnel, not just on the court, but he understands them off the court. So now, because he's more aware, he can communicate with them in the language in which they understand. And now they're able to comprehend. And now we see Phoenix almost running the table. But the third thing, let me get to the third thing so that I can get out of here, right? The third and the most crucial thing is this. He's controlling the flow of the game. Now, the flow of the game and the pace of the game are two totally different things, because Phoenix has been moving like this and Phoenix has slowed down a little bit. The speed of the game is also the pace of the game, but the flow of the game is different. Chris Paul is controlling the flow of the game. And he or she that controls the flow, this is a golden nugget for you parents, share it with your athletes, and coaches, share it with your athletes. He or she that controls the flow of the game controls the game. Say it again. He or she that controls the flow of the game controls the game itself. And so Chris Paul is basically able to dictate and pick apart the defense because they're moving at the flow in which he wants them to move. It's not the pace, because he can walk the ball up and still get what he needs to get in a rhythmic, right? The flow is like, if you look at the flow of the ocean, flow of the river, it's rhythmic. It's rhythmic. So if he's coming down, skipping it up court, sprinting up court, fast break, half court set, he's controlling the flow of the game. And because he's controlling the flow of the game, it looks that much different and it looks that much more astonishing, because while everybody is doing like this, when he get the ball and when he comes in the game, it's a totally different flow. And so like a great symphony orchestra, he's the conductor, and he's conducting how the flow moves, when it moves, right? And how far it expands. That's the golden nugget today that I want people to understand. Yes, flow and pace are different, Coach. Absolutely. And most people don't understand this, Coach. Most people don't understand this, right? Yep. Keep up the good. AAU is back out here. Yep. God bless you, TD. Yep. Again, hey, let me know how we can help you in your program. You know, definitely reach out to us, right? But those are the three things. He's able to better communicate. Now his teammates can comprehend. One, he's more aware of them and what they bring. And so now that allows him to be able to further know his personnel. So now he can communicate with them in a manner in which they can comprehend. And then the third and final thing is he's controlling the flow of the game. And because he's controlling the flow of the game, he's making the game look real, real simple. Because since he's controlling the flow of the game, it never gets out of his control. Does that make sense? A lot of times your athletes are just looking to keep up with the pace of the game, and it may be too fast for them. It may be too slow for them. And then that builds up anxiety, frustration, low confidence, lack of self-belief, because they aren't able to keep up. But when they're able to understand how to control the flow of the game, it don't matter if they play 5 minutes or if they play 35 minutes. Each and every time they're in the game is going to move how they want it to move. All right. So I just want to write that part. There you go, sis, right? I just wanted to drop this on you all, right? Again, share this with somebody that you love. 3 key points. 3 key points That's all you need. That's all your athlete needs for today's lesson, those 3 key points. And again, I know Chris Paul, sports psychologist coach, or his mental performance coach, whatever you want to call it, right? Chris Paul hasn't done nothing miraculous from a basketball standpoint on the court in terms of numbers that he hasn't done before. He's just a different person mentally, and it's showing physically. All right. And so that's what we help our, clients do at Hoops Master University. So if you haven't had a chance to check out my free training, right, at BeTheRightRecruit.com, definitely go check that out. Thank you for sharing, Coach. Hey, sis, you are absolutely welcome. Make sure you stick around, right, if you ain't heard the theme song, right? So Monski took care of me. Stick around. Sums it up. What we do, plain and simple, right? So before I get to our outro music, right, I just want to let you know again, if you have had a chance, check out my free training. Go check it out, BeTheRightRecruit.com. And if you have a high school athlete, right, that's looking to get recruited, and they're not a 5-star athlete, they're not a 5-star player, that's fine. But they can still get themselves recruited, right? Because even with Chris Paul, last thing, this is the bonus with Chris Paul. Because Chris Paul has mastered these 3 things in a short period of time. Chris Paul has a $44 million player contract extension for next year. $44 million. Chris Paul is so confident in his performance now, he's said to be thinking about foregoing a guaranteed $44 million player option at the end of this year in hopes of signing a 3-year, over $100 million contract. So where he may lose money on the front end, he's gaining on the back end because he's getting an additional 2 years. It's chess, not checkers. So if they sign him to that extension, 3 years, over $100 million, and he give the $44 million back, he can give the $44 million back because he knows that he's done enough to now have the Phoenix Suns recruit him back at a higher rate. I hope this is making sense to y'all. So when your athletes come through Hoops Master University, they not only will be able to find the right fit, but they put themselves in position to continue to be recruitable throughout the process of their lives. Jobs, sports, relationships, recruitable. All right. So that's it. Yep. The back end. So that is it, right? Okay. Now we're coming back in. All right, there we go. Slide me over. Okay. All right. So anybody got any questions, comments, concerns? Get out of here. Questions, comments, concerns before we get out of here. All right. Not, then I will see y'all on the back end. Peace.
Yo, just so you understand it, this is Coach Karvell Bailey's program with the spirit of Bob Hambry.
This is Blessed of All, helping athletes, and we represent. Study your craft, your mentality leads to excellence. It's all about your mindset. We'll never stop addressing this, so be positive and not a pessimist. Confidence took James Harden higher. If you really want it, it ain't gonna be easy. It's gonna be hard as carbon fiber, but we got you. From counseling to workshops, we do it. You'll go farther with a scholarship. We'll help you get recruited. Yo, anyone can dribble and shoot, but it's the ones who study basketball internally that make it to Duke University. knowledge goes around. The game is played from the neck up and not from the shoulders down. This is Bless the Ball, helping you with obstacles. The athletes are the rocket, bless the ball is the rocket fuel. If you hit a wall, we can help you slowly climb it. So keep a Mamba mentality like Kobe Bryant. Bless the ball. Cherish the opportunities that you have. Bless the ball. Use your mentality to master the craft. Bless the ball. Come join our team, it's a new day. Follow our steps and watch how much better you play. Bless the ball. Cherish the opportunities that you have. Bless the ball. Use your mentality to master the craft. Bless the ball. Come join our team, it's a new day. Follow our steps and watch how much better you play. Yo, Coach Karvell Bailey. Hey, listen to your coach, man. He ain't no scrub off the street. That man got credentials, academic and street. Believe it, and my name is strategic.